Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So as you might know, I am an aerialist. A big part of aerial acrobatics, and I reckon sports in general, is also mobility and flexibility. That is also something that I would really like to work on a lot more this year. So I figured today I would share some of my favorite stretches with you, which actually my stretches that I do are pretty basic. So that's why I thought it would also be fun to then try some drills and hacks I found on social media. So first part is going to be me just sort of going through the stretches that I usually do. I want to start doing them a lot more regularly. So in the future, maybe you'll also see a video of my progress if I make progress, which we're hoping. But yeah, so first part, my favorite stretches. Second part, testing some stretches I find on social media. I hope you like it, and let's go ahead and get started with my stretches. I'm gonna just put in my headphones so I can listen to some music, because I feel like that also really helps me to feel more relaxed in stretches. A very big thing in general with stretching is that you need to get to a point where you're able to somewhat relax into it. That has a lot to do with, first of all, the mental aspect of like being able to tell your body, hey, okay, we're safe, this is okay, so that you're able to get deeper into a stretch. But then also a lot of it is just like breathing and a lot of practice, honestly. The more you do it, the more you get used to it. And then you obviously also need to know which muscles you need to keep activated and where you can actually let go, because that's sometimes not always quite so clear. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started with my favorite stretches, and then let's see what some other people's favorite stretches are. The way I like to start stretching is by just rolling my back out. This isn't really so much a stretch as it is just something I love doing, especially if you spend all of your day sitting in an office. I feel like it's just glorious. So I feel like that's the one stretch that I always do, just because I love it, as well as the bigger version where you're coming into more of a cobra position and then coming back into a child's position. I also feel like this is just a lovely, lovely little rolling out of your back before you actually start with like full-on stretches. Now for actual stretches, I feel like my favorite one, and the one that is really important for me personally, is this low lunge stretch, because my back legs are like, my hip flexors are very tight usually, so I feel like this is very needed for me personally when I'm looking at working on my splits. And you can obviously have your hands up, also push into your back leg a bit. I feel like, yeah, it's just a nice one. Stretches out my leg in a lovely way. And then the sort of opposite of that is the hamstring stretch, where you have your front leg straight and you lower down. And this one is also, I think a lot of people also call it maybe runner stretch. But this one I also just love. I feel like it feels really nice. And those are, I feel like, the main two that I usually would do if I'm working on splits. Also, I generally tend to start with my worst side, so that for me is my left side, just because I feel like then the worst is over. But yeah, always stretch both sides as well. You want to make sure that you're not just flexible on one side. Another stretch that I like to do is a downward dog, and this I feel like is my favorite thing to do in between stretches, because it gets the whole body involved, but it's also, I find, quite relaxing and not as intense as, say, as an actual split. So I feel like it's a very nice thing to do between. And then obviously for splits, actually doing the splits is also really important. So taking the time to practice that, even if you're not fully down, I feel like it's gonna be probably still one of the most effective things you can do to eventually get your splits. And obviously you could use blocks or anything else to help you if you're not fully down, but doing that, super important. Now for middle splits, my favorite stretch to do before I go into middle split is a froggy stretch, which is basically where you have your knees bent. And I really like to rock forward and backwards in this position. I find it really relaxing. It feels nice. It feels like it's loosening up my hips a bit. So I really like that one. Another exercise I like to do in between is this sort of swooshing from one direction to the other. And then obviously, and this I feel like is such a key stretch, especially for aerial. I love doing a straddle stretch. So straddle or pancake stretches are essentially where your knees are pointing upwards, whereas in a middle split, they would be pointing more forward. So a straddle stretch, you would try to lower down as much as possible. And it's super nice for aerial because it helps a lot with your inversions. If your straddle flexibility is better, then you're gonna have a way easier time learning and doing inversions. And then obviously, because it's middle splits flexibility, I also really like to actually do the middle split. So I feel like those are my leg flexibility stretches. Now moving on to back flexibility. Back flexibility is definitely one of my key struggles because my back is as stiff as a board. So essentially, this is something that I would love to be better at. Unfortunately, I am not, but that's why we're working on it. So I really enjoy a cobra stretch. Very basic, very simple, but I do feel like there is a reason people do it so much. I also really like the way it feels. I also like to lift up into a cobra and then lower back down and lift up and lower down and all of that. For my upper back, I really enjoy a puppy pose. So this kind of stretch, which is lovely as well for shoulder flexibility. And just opening the upper back. And then obviously another key stretch for back flexibility is a bridge, or I think in yoga they call it a wheel, back bend. This thing essentially, which is also very difficult for me, but that's why I'm working on it. So those were my favorite stretches, but now I'm very curious to try out some hacks and drills I found on social media. So let's get started with that. Right, so I've got my trusty iPad ready, just to make sure that I can see what the people are doing. Okay, so the first one is from Laura Kummerly. I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce her name, but she is doing a splits flexibility drill with 2 blocks and a band that's working on the back hip. I'm very, very interested in trying this because for me, definitely my back leg in my splits is more of a limiting factor than my front leg. So yeah, let's try and set this up. Okay, so I've got my 2 blocks and my band at the ready. Essentially, she just has the band around her back and then she has it looped, I think, once around each hand. And then I think all she does is come into a split. So let's try that. I'm not sure if I'm doing this right. I mean, I can feel my back leg. Yeah, okay. I feel like if you try to push into the band backwards, then you really feel your lower leg. If you relax more into it, then I wouldn't say it's super effective, but if you actually actively press to the back, yeah, I can see why she does that. I do feel like it's a nice stretch. Personally, I didn't feel a much more intense stretch in my hip flexor than if I just, for instance, do like a normal low lunge. I think especially if you're not able to really feel what the stretch of a hip flexor is supposed to feel like, I think it's nice. I don't think I'm going to include it in my personal stretching routine, but I do like it. Right, next one is from Solstice Yoga, also a front splits drill. This kind of thing is gruesome. I know this. I have done stretches like this before. They are extremely effective because they are so active. So active flexibility is obviously where you're also actively using your muscles, and they tend to also be a lot safer than just passively stretching. I'm not looking forward to this. I know it's going to be good, but I don't particularly enjoy drills like this. Essentially what she does is she has one leg in front, and then she comes down and up and down and up, and that motion, if you try to do it like without the blocks, for instance, I should really have a slider as well under my front foot. That would make it a bit easier. But yeah, it's going to ensure that you are very active in your flexibility, which is really nice. So obviously, the less you use your blocks, the better it is for your flexibility. Oh, but it's hard doing it without blocks. But that's definitely a super, super nice stretch and very effective. And I probably should include something like that in my routine because I hate it. Which usually, if you hate things, at least for me, it tells me that it's something I should be doing because my body needs it, and that's why it's currently being like, no, it's too hard, but then actually it would probably really pay off. Okay, moving on, the next one is by Gemma, Train Like a Pro, and she is using a foam roller to stretch her splits. This again is a front splits drill. So let's go ahead and give it a go. She's in a lunge and her back foot is on the roller, and then she is lowering down and coming back up. Okay, let's see. Okay, hands are out for balance, and then let's come back down and come back up and go back down. I feel like this is also really stabilizing my ankle because it's wobbling around so much, just to make sure that I'm staying balanced. So I feel like it's a good balancing drill actually also. I feel like that one is a nice one as well because it is a little bit more active. A slightly softer roller would be nice because this kind of hurt my shins a little bit. I know I'm being a baby, but still, you know, I like to be comfortable in my pain, if that makes sense. Let's move on to some middle splits drills. First one is from Moves Method, and the girl in the video is getting up and then sitting back down into a middle split, essentially. She is using her hands and then standing up and lowering back down. So I'm going to start actually because she also had, well, in one version she had the 2 blocks. So I'm going to start with that just to see. Oh, see, this is, I would need to wear shoes for this, I think, because my socks are slipping, and barefoot I feel like I would also slip, but let's just try that. No, I can't stand, see? Okay, this one is a fail. Maybe not because of the drill, but because of the flooring I have and the fact that I don't have grippy socks. I just have normal socks. Unfortunately, that one I am just also out of practicality reasons definitely not going to include, because usually I train either at home or at the studio, but then I would never be wearing shoes. So I feel like the standing part, just because of the slippiness of socks and a floor or of the mat, is going to prevent me to successfully do this drill. So that's a no. Okay, so we have one by Jasmine Monserrate. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name, but essentially it's a tense and release stretch, which are intense, haha. You're actively like squeezing your thighs together and then relaxing deeper into a split. So let's just try that. Squeezing, and then I'm relaxing, and then I'm squeezing, and then I'm relaxing. The relaxing does feel really nice after the squeezing. This one is an okay one. I don't know, I'm always a bit wary about stretches that are like fully relaxed. I feel like occasionally those kinds of stretches would enable you to go deeper than might be safe at the current moment. Now that's only my opinion. I don't know if that's actually a fact, but I feel like I'm a bit scared usually to fully just relax into something that I know is going to be very intense. I mean, I get why it's effective, but I also don't love it. Okay, next middle split stretch is from Sour Stretches, and she has a band around her back and then a foam roller in front, and it's basically lowering down and lifting up using the foam roller. I feel like I'm gonna like this one, so let's set it up. There we go. So this is her starting position, and then she basically comes down and up like this. Okay, I like this. I like as well using the foam roller because there is an exercise where you essentially go down and come up, but without a foam roller, and that I feel like is a little bit more difficult, so this would be a good starting exercise. Yeah, that one I love. Okay, so that's all of the drills I am going to try today. I hope you liked today's video. Definitely let me know if you have any stretching hacks or drills that you like to do, because I'm always keen to try out some new ways to work on flexibility and to stretch out my body. I hope to see you next time. Bye!